New York are notorious for being downright nasty, but the scene that is playing out in Wisconsin's capital city makes Albany look tame by comparison. Thousands of protesters have descended on the state capitol in Madison. Many of them are teachers, and they are rallying against Republican Governor Scott Walker's cost-cutting proposal that would limit the collective bargaining rights of unions. Wisconsin Senate Democrats have fled the state to prevent quorum from being reached, so the bills can't be voted on. And meanwhile, that standoff took a very interesting twist yesterday when a New York blogger placed a prank call to Governor Walker, posing as David Koch, who is a wealthy donor to the Tea Party. Walker told the imposter that he had considered luring those Democrats back to the Capitol by inviting them to have an informal conversation in hopes of establishing quorum. Now, here in New York, education advocates are upset over Governor Cuomo's proposed cuts to the tune of nearly $3 billion over the course of the current fiscal year, and also a push by local leaders who are led by Mayor Bloomberg to end that last-in, first-out requirement for teacher layoffs. New York State United Teachers, the state's biggest teachers union, launched an ad campaign this week, but relative to the melee in Madison, the reaction to the potential cuts here has been rather muted. Now, my next guest tonight heads another teachers union in New York. Michael Mulgrew is the president of the United Federation of Teachers. He is joining me tonight from New York City. Michael Mulgrew, thank you very much for your time. It's great to see you.
Nice to see you, and good evening to everybody.
So here's the thing. It's really unusual what's going on in New York because it's very tame, like I said. I have seen budget battles get crazy. In Wisconsin, they are practically occupying the Capitol and have been demonstrating for 9 days. What is going on?
Well, Wisconsin's a whole different other issue what's going on there. There you have the budget side of the issues. In Wisconsin, the unions have already come to an agreement on working on the economic conditions. What you have there is you have a governor who is putting forth legislation that basically says you don't have a right to organize. And that's a whole different other issue now. So what's going on, and I've been, I'm in contact with the people in Wisconsin, and this issue that in the United States at this point in time is, especially considering everything else going on around the rest of the globe where people are fighting for democracy, here we have a governor of the state of Wisconsin saying, I want to take your right away to organize, that people should not have the ability to come together so that their voices could be heard, so that they can speak truth to elected officials. And it's a much, much more malicious issue in terms of the actual budget issues that are going on in Wisconsin. Okay,
but you're not happy with what the Mayor Bloomberg in New York City or Governor Cuomo are doing. You're not pleased with that either, but you're saying that would you call what they are doing anti-union in comparison?
No, well, listen, first of all, we're having a whole different other issue with the mayor in New York City versus the governor in Albany. My union right now is, look, we're running our own ads. We cannot believe that the mayor with a $3 billion surplus in New York City is saying, wants to fight about how to do layoffs. Especially considering that in New York City we've lost 5,000 teachers in the last 2 years, and our class sizes have gone up to dramatic levels we haven't seen since the mid-1970s, and all we hear out of the mayor is that I want to fight with you on how to do layoffs, and then you have the governor who says, here's my budget proposal, and layoffs aren't needed in New York City.
Okay, but hold on one second.
And the mayor has a $3 billion surplus.
Well, the mayor and the governor actually are a little bit at odds as to exactly how much money is left on the table here. But let's leave that aside for a second. In terms of last in, first out, that's about layoffs and the way that people are laid off in the public school system. Basically, it's about seniority, right? The person who was last hired.
Actually, that's what it's called. It's civil service seniority legislation,
okay.
Yes.
You have, and it's not just a New York City thing, even though Mayor Bloomberg has been pushing for it. You've got folks upstate also saying now, trying to get on board with this and saying, okay, good, we'd like to get on board with that too, to have more control over keeping young, energetic teachers, arguably, and then perhaps some other people who are more expensive, of course, getting rid of them first. You have a poll out today from Quinnipiac that says 85% of New Yorkers actually like the idea of layoffs being merit-based instead of based on seniority. 85% is pretty overwhelming. What's your reaction to that?
Well, first, it's the idea that we're saying that when the mayor comes out and says, I want to get rid of teachers who aren't doing their jobs, I don't disagree with him. And so my issue is, last year in New York City, we agreed to what's an expedited process for disciplining and removing teachers, which has worked very successfully. We have the infamous rubber rooms have all been closed, and the backlog of all those cases have been taken care of. So when I'm speaking with the mayor, my issue always is, well, are you telling me the only time you want to get rid of teachers who aren't doing their job is when you're doing layoffs? And I said, you know, this is how you're presenting this in the public's eye is misleading, because you should always be constantly evaluating teachers at all times. And we have been able to do that in the city.
Mike, the voters in New York seem to be completely on board with that. 85% say, okay, if you're doing a good job, great, you can stay. If you're not doing a good job, it shouldn't be based on how many years you have in the system. What do you have wrong with that?
So when they ask the question, should people be laid off on their merit, I agree with them completely. So when you change, in New York City, as you've heard Commissioner Steiner say it and Chancellor Tisch, we have a new evaluation system that is much more objective, that really will make this argument moot. So when you're asking people a question, I asked the mayor's proposal. I've asked the mayor, what is your proposal? And he said, let the principals decide, and that you should use as part of the criteria what someone's salary is. So I pushed back right away at that moment. I said, well, if it's about merit, then why are we talking about salary? Because what we know clearly is that the biggest problem we have statewide is that we still lose 50% of our teachers after 5 years, even in this tough economic time. So you're telling us the people who actually stay in the profession and work with the kids, and because they stay, they should now be penalized?
Okay.
And that they've stayed, that should be used against them?
Okay, let me ask you this. If LIFO, that's what we've started to call it, right, in Albany, it's like a shorthand.
Well, I still call it the civil service seniority. But
let's say the civil service seniority rule comes up for a vote. It's probably not going to come up as part of the budget, even though Mayor Bloomberg would like it to be. The governor says he's open to some kind of new evaluation system, much like what you're discussing, what we were just discussing, but not vis-a-vis the budget, right? Perhaps after the budget. Now this bill comes up. Senator Flanagan's got the bill. He wants to repeal last in, first out. It's being fast-tracked in the Senate. It's in the Senate for a vote. Would you advocate the Senate Democrats take a walk? I mean, would you advocate that people take a walk the way they've taken a walk in Wisconsin to avoid votes? No,
what I would advocate at this point is, I saw Senator, I don't know his name, but it's basically Mayor Bloomberg's bill. I think they've even admitted they work with the teacher. When I see a bill, I mean, look, I taught for 13 years, and if one of my students handed in a book report that looked at how bad and sloppy that legislation was written, they would be given an F.
You're giving the bill an F?
I would give the bill an F in terms of the work that they did to write it.
Okay.
When you say that if someone has an allegation against them, you read the legislation that they put forward last night. Someone has an allegation against them, that could be used as grounds to lay them off. If someone has an allegation against them and they go through a process and are completely exonerated, that should be used as grounds to lay them off. It's pretty crazy legislation. And it has nothing, it basically is saying that we should be able to lay off anyone we want. So what their proposal is to go back to the days of cronyism and nepotism, which is why we landed up with seniority legislation in the first place.
Okay.
Because it has to have some fair, objective way of deciding this.
Okay.
So that legislation from last night, I mean, it really is embarrassing what they wrote.
What then, at all? I mean, you've got teachers statewide, and I should note that the teachers were one of the few unions, NYSET and UFT, NYSET being the statewide organization, UFT being the city organization, were some of the few unions that did not endorse Andrew Cuomo during the governor's race. So you guys find yourself free and clear to pretty much say whatever you want. What do you think that teachers should be doing in terms of offering concessions to be part of the solution, as the governor likes to say, particularly when we see reports today on the front page of the Daily News about big spending by the unions, that, you have $500,000 spent for caterers for events that you have, for example?
Look, and what we have done already in New York City is we did a pension modification 20 months ago that's saving the city of New York over $100 million a year recurring. We did a health care package last year that's saving the city $250 million. And in terms of what we spend on our membership, I'm very, very proud of that. I will continue to help and support the members. I mean, part of the story was that we spent a lot on coffee. We have 200,000 members. So I think they have a right to have a cup of coffee or a bottle of water when they come into one of our offices. And especially now, from what you brought out before, the way that teachers are being treated in a lot of the public and in the media, like the teachers of New York City are very clear on this. They tell me all the time, the mayor does not respect us, the mayor doesn't understand what we do, and the mayor has no inclination whatsoever to understand what children need to learn. So if I can help support them, I will do that.
In closing then, Mike, do you believe that Governor Cuomo supports and respects teachers?
I have, you know, look, Governor has been very upfront. I speak to him 2 to 3 times a week. When people try to say Governor Cuomo and Governor Christie, that's two different cases. He said, here's the budget. Let's start the process. He's not doing what's happening in Wisconsin, where you don't have a right to organize. He's being upfront with it. Now, we do need, you know, look, we've taken $2 billion in cuts statewide in education, and we do need more funding. So, I mean, I've been very clear with the governor on my position on the millionaires tax should continue. We do live in the income disparity capital of the entire country. New York is #1 in income disparity. And I'm very strong about that should move forward. We should continue the millionaires tax in this state.
Okay, Mike Mulgrew, I'm sure we are going to see more of you in the halls of the Capitol pretty soon. I want to thank you very much in the meantime for joining us.
Thank you. You take care now.